Wonderful Lulu Kennedy, welcome to In Fashion.
Hi.
I want to start because you're so busy, you're one of the busiest people in fashion, and we were just talking about this before we went live. You're running around trying to organise everything. So what are you up to at the moment? What are you working on?
At the moment we are coming up for Menswear Fashion East in June. We're looking for a venue, if anyone knows a good venue. That's for our installations, and for Lulu and Co we've decided just like yesterday to do a resort collection, so we're hammering that together this week, as you do, and I'm doing a shoot tomorrow where I go karting, which is exciting, and I'm sure I'm doing something else. Oh yeah, I'm shooting with Love on Thursday and Friday.
Gosh.
Yes.
You've covered everything that I want to ask later on about all the different things that you're involved in, so that's quite a nice way to start. And before we do talk about sort of what you're up to at the moment, I want to go right back to the beginning of your fashion life. I'm interested, can you remember your earliest memory of fashion? Because you work across different arenas, you do magazine, but you also work with designers. I'm interested whether it was your first sort of interaction with fashion was a magazine, or whether it was clothes, or whether it was designing. Do you remember sort of where it came from?
No. I mean, my first item of clothing that I really loved was some Bieber glittered wellies when I was about 2. I just thought they were everything and I'd wear them constantly. So that was my first garment, I suppose. And then, no, I don't really remember. My dad took me shopping for school shoes, and we got these really inappropriate ones. I was about 12 or 11 even. We came back with basically winkle pickers, really like the Marc Jacobs spring summer ones at the moment, and they were just, my mum just went mental. She's like, "You're wearing her feet," and I was like, "They're so cool," and I was like, wore them with my socks scrunched down on my school uniform. Yeah, I wasn't very good at school uniforms, so I definitely started to get a big kind of buzz off fashion, and that was just going down this kind of punk shop in Bristol with my dad for school shoes.
So is that sort of what drew you in, that element of like, I guess the way that fashion can make you feel, the way it can, whether it's like your glittery wellies or your sort of slightly subversive school shoes, is it that kind of element of transformation that fashion comes from? Is that what excited you?
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't planned to go and get wild school shoes, but once you did, and once you'd had that kind of buzz, maybe it was just like, you know it when you know it kind of thing. And there's no going back. It's like there's no way I was going to like wear normal shoes after that. And
it stuck ever since. That's so funny. I'm interested in sort of the point there where you started to think about fashion as something that you wanted to pursue in kind of a career context, because you've had quite an interesting background when you studied, because you moved between England and then you went to Italy as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Did you always know you wanted to do something sort of creative?
I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do at all, other than hang around with fun people and do things that interested me. I mean, I had no notion of career. I don't know if I do. I'm trying. I really, just kind of followed what I wanted to do and didn't plan. And I guess that in itself is one way of, finding out what you do. It's like taking a foundation, but just by moving countries, different scenes, until I found something that I really liked. But yeah, there's never been any sort of career planning. I think I didn't go to career, at school when you have to do career guidance, whatever it's called. You go and see not the counsellor, you go and see the careers advisor.
Careers advisor.
Yeah. I think I might have not gone to that. But I was quite into the idea of working in art galleries, and I did do for a while, but then I realised it wasn't very much fun. Not as much fun as fashion people were having, so I kind of switched over. Yeah.
It's interesting to me that you say you sort of you never had a fixed plan, and it's almost funny that you say you didn't see your careers advisor, because in a much more glamorous, exciting sense, that's kind of that role that you play for young designers now. It is giving them that mentorship, I don't know if that's a word, giving them that sort of assistance and that help. But do you find when people come to you that that's one of the things you tell them, it's absolutely fine not to have a plan, it's absolutely fine not to know exactly what you want to do? Or do you think that that's...
No, I try and tell them what I think are their strengths and encourage them in their strengths, more than just saying don't have a plan like me, because I don't, it's worked out okay for me. ish, but I wouldn't recommend it to other people. I think it's great to have a plan and some goals, and quite like that. I didn't pursue that kind of route, but yeah, I think it's about finding your strengths, and sometimes that can take a while, and it's fine to sort of take a bit of time to get there. Maybe that's the sort of advice I give them.
I'm interested because you've been so successful in sort of helping people build brands and generate buzz around the work they're doing. What is it that makes something work and makes something not work? You know, is there sort of a magic ingredient, or is it just the right time, the right place? What is it that makes something sort of take off or do really well?
Timing is important, you're right, because you can have a lot of the elements. There's talent and there's hard work, and there's the people that you surround yourself with, and there's a bit of luck and good timing. So I think it's sort of those elements together, and when they come together, it can be as easy as that. You just find your niche straight away and slot in and know what you're doing, and just, you know, roll with it. Other people, there might be some awkward, you know, timing, or everyone seems to have a different little journey that they go on. Some easier,
some much more challenging.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about Lulu and Co, but first I want to speak a bit about Fashionista, because the two run so perfectly sort of together. Talk to me about the very earliest parts of Fashionista and where that idea came from, and what it was like to set up something like that.
So the reason Fashionista happened in the first place was that I really just loved House of Jazz, Hazel and Pablo, and that whole scene. I'd sort of moved to East London and really just straight away, luckily, found that whole little gang and really got on with them and was having fun with them and believed in their talent. And I was in a position at the Old Truman Brewery where I could offer them like a free venue, because luckily the guy that runs it, my boss, is a very cool guy, eccentric, believes in supporting young talent, and I was lucky enough to just land on my feet in that job, and I'm still there. That was 1996. So that's kind of amazing, because I'd never been able to hold down a job or been interested in a job enough to stay more than about a week usually. So very lucky in that all those things came together, and Hazel and Pablo were just great, and I still, you know, adore them to this day and see a lot of them. And they really were the ones that just inspired me to go, hang on, I can do more than just give you a free warehouse at Truman's. We can get some sponsorship, we can do this properly, we can try and make it better, and take all that annoying stuff off of you that you have to organise, you know, the show side of it, the production, which I kind of enjoyed doing it from organising parties and gigs in Naples. So I kind of really enjoyed that bit anyway. So it's very natural, the kind of division of they're doing the collection, I'm trying to organise all the back end stuff. And some great people came on board to help me, because I knew nobody in fashion. I was just a girl that ran around Truman's renting out the spaces. And so brilliant people came on board and helped, and are still amazing to this day. And it's, you know, like the Mandy Leonards, Mel Rickey, Sarah Mower, Harriet Quick from Vogue, all these kind of really cool chicks that were just like, okay, do this, no, you should do that, do it this way, I know so-and-so, I'll call them. Just, you know, my kind of, my angels that guided me through the kind of what not to do, because I didn't know anything about London Fashion Week. All I really knew of London was I like Vivienne Westwood, had one of her corsets.
It's funny that you say you didn't know about London Fashion Week, because now, like, I don't think people can imagine London fashion without Fashionista. You know, it's such a huge part of all that people love about London, whether it's that kind of fresh design talent or some people being a bit sort of supportive of younger people. I think that's something that's really intrinsic to sort of our London DNA. Was there a point where you kind of realised that it becomes such a huge part of the city that it kind of, was it the point where you started to show on skits? I don't know if there was
I don't know. Do you know what, Lou? I really don't know, because I think I was just too busy doing it. I was just trying to make it, you know, happen, like my small bit of it, which was looking after, you know, a little handful of designers that I thought were great each season. And I think I was so busy that, you know, just trying to get things going, that next time you look up, it's like everyone's doing it and into it, and it's like, you're like, oh wow, that's good, because you know, when I first started doing it, everyone would be like, why? And I'd go and see the British Fashion Council and just say, hi, by the way, I'm Lulu, I'm going to do this thing over in East London. They'd be like, okay, bye then. You know, and then like gradually over time, it was like more and more people were kind of getting on board and helping young designers, and it became kind of a thing. And now, you know, London kind of excels at that, and it's very exciting to have witnessed that all happen.
You touched on something interesting there when you talked about, you know, London is very much about that kind of collaborative spirit, that idea of everyone helping each other out. I think feels very London.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I don't know, where that comes from. I think it's from the friendships that designers make at college. So, you know, like if they're lucky enough to have gone to St Martin's or wherever, and they've made friends, and they just sort of stay friends, and there's that spirit of definitely at Fashionista, because the three of them show together. It's like you are a collective, and there's strength in numbers, and you look out for each other and you help each other, which is kind of unusual and
so
lovely.
They're not ever over competitive with each other?
Healthily competitive, I think it's good that they are. Yeah, they have to be, because they will be out in the, you know, world of retail. But what's lovely about Fashionista is it's not overly bothered at the very early stages about the retail side of fashion, and things aren't products, they're like beautiful ideas and garments, and it's an energy or it's a feeling. It's not so much like a range plan, a rail of clothes, price point, market position, and all that stuff that they have to learn if they're going to, you know, have a viable commercial business, if they want one, and, you know, that's up to them.
Is that the biggest challenge, do you think, for young designers, is getting that balance between being able to sort of have that fantasy and that incredible creativity, but also, you know, like get it picked up by a store? What's the big challenge that faces?
Yeah, it is quite a challenge. It's something I'm aware of, that, you know, like Fashionista, sorry to keep going on about us, but I think we're quite good at doing this thing of putting on a group show and getting people excited about it, and, you know, the designers that we've worked with have been incredible. But then comes the challenge of, I think we put them out on a big stage very quickly, like they go off to Paris to do sales, and I mean, that's quite a big jump, and I wish there was more that we could do at Fashionista to kind of prepare them for that, you know, in practical terms, and almost like mentally, just like, are you ready for this? Because it's actually quite a big deal, and you'll have, you know, a lot of exposure. And
do you worry about them a lot? Because I think it must be like chicks flying the nest. You know, it's only 3 seasons. When they go, I think, is that heartbreaking sometimes, especially if you worry that they're not ready?
I do get quite attached to people and things and places. Traditionally I do. Once I love something, I just, like, you know, adore it. And it is hard, but not really, because I tend to see them outside of work as friends. So that's always fun. I'm trying to think if there's ever been a time where I'm like glad to see the back of them. I don't think so.
You couldn't tell me if there
Oh, I would. I just can't think of anyone. No,
That's
I
good,
think
though.
I think I'm only joking. I think 3 seasons is enough for them, you know, like, God, they're probably dying to move on, and, you know, fashion is great because, you know, it's a free show. From their point of view, it's like, I'm pretty sure they always are, you know, super dying to have their own venue, their own vibe, their own audience, you know. It is a bit of a, you should see backstage, my God, 3 shows, 3 show crews, you know, and all the hair and makeup, and it's absolute bedlam.
I want to go back to talking about that collaborative spirit that we were mentioning earlier, because is that what got you into the idea of doing Lulu & Co? Because when you think of Lulu & Co, it's so unique in a sense, because it is just kind of this incredibly collaborative, amazing fashion thing. That's very unique. There aren't many other labels that are built around this idea of people working together and kind of producing things in a... I just find it, when you think about it, it's so different to what... It's a very different model to what you're used to seeing.
Yeah, it's quite an unusual business model. Well, it was in the early days, because, I mean, to be honest, it started out just to be a project to celebrate 10 years of Fashionista. So we reissued things from the archive. So we had incredible, like, gowns that Jonathan had done, and Roxando and House Jazz, and all, you know, the key kids that had come through the project. And the unbelievable thing was, I I mean, it's so well received that buyers were like, what are you doing next season? We're like, oh, next season, what are we doing? So, I mean, there you go again. It's a bit like my thing you were saying about a career or having an unusual path. I mean, what happened then is that we had to go away and kind of work out where the kind of logical and realistically achievable position for Lulu & Co would be, which has turned out to not be obviously reissuing archive staff and not kind of crossing over too much with our designers, because they all have their own stuff they're doing. Doing more of our own things in-house. I'm lucky that I co-design with friends, and we do the collaborations with fashion photographers and artists, so it keeps it really interesting, and it's still that thing of the collection has little collections within it. It's just become more cohesive as we kind of go along, and it's more contemporary now.
Yeah.
Which I'm super excited about, because it means it's affordable and accessible, and I see people wearing it and it makes me happy, and it can just be like a really fun t-shirt that we've designed. We did some recently with a 9-year-old kid that's
the little owl one.
With the owls,
I love those.
Oh my god, she's crazy about owls, and she's got these incredible little hand drawings, and she's given them names. One of them's called Prado, and Prado the owl. There's one on roller skates. There's one on the skateboard doing the V's. It's like one playing tennis, and they're just So that's a far cry from what it started out as, which was.
Do you think fashion puts too much of a focus on the individual? I was thinking a lot about how you kind of touched on this earlier when you were talking about how designers are kind of, there's so much pressure on them in a sense. There's that spotlight as soon as they're even taken on to something like Fashion East. And do you think that the whole industry would be a lot better off if people were more willing to work in a more collaborative, even like behind the scenes way, where you're working together to produce something? It's not necessarily all about you as the designer. Is that something that you would like to sort of see more people doing? It's a big question, sorry.
I mean, I really love working together with people. It doesn't bother me. The more the merrier is my kind of attitude, but and it's definitely nice now that everyone is kind of on the same page at London in terms of supporting young designers, rather than people in their little, smaller ways like me over in East London doing what I was doing. It's better now that everyone is doing the same project, essentially. I think it makes more sense. Yeah, I like collective stuff, and I'm really happy with the kind of, maybe because I'm from a big family and that's just how I like the kind of argy-bargy and the like dynamics you get when there's a lot of fun characters doing stuff.
I'm interested in kind of the pace though, because I feel like it sounds so organic when you talk about it and so natural, but I think it is such an incredible luxury to be able to work in a kind of supportive, collaborative way. And I think many designers would feel like just there are so many expectations on them of what they have to do, whether it's kind of having a Twitter account and going to events, but also doing 4 collections a year. And I'm interested in whether sort of that pace and that pressure of fashion is sustainable for designers. Do the young sort of talented people you work with, do you see that in them, that they're aware of this monumental pressure?
Some of them adapt better to it than others, or some will just like not interact with it and kind of refuse, which I quite like.
Is that possible to build a career and do that?
Yeah, it'll be different. It won't be the traditional route, but it'll be interesting and more on their own terms, which I'm totally behind that if that's what people want to do. Because that pressure, like you say, is insane. It's relentless, and it's like, what if there's other stuff going on in your life and you can't just belt out a collection to deadline? I mean, it's good to take some time out and do other things. Like, I think it's really good for designers to go off and do different projects and try things out, and they won't all of them be a huge success, but by doing that you then know more what you do want to do, by having done something you didn't really like doing. Or it's like I say to kids coming out of college, go and get a job somewhere, anywhere. It can be like really hateful, and it'll steel you in a good way, like steal your nerves and resolve and determination to do your own thing, maybe, if you go and work somewhere really horrific. Or if you're lucky enough to go and work somewhere great that inspires you and you can learn, just be like a sponge, pick stuff up and then kind of like learn how to transfer that into your own projects. Being around, you know, talented people, there's nothing like it.
Are people starting too early? Do you think there is because I always think it's so great in London that we have these amazing art colleges and art schools, but then also there's that kind of culture where I think people love a story when someone like just leaves St Martin's and they set up their own label and they do really well. You know, is there too much of a pressure to do that? Should people go away and sort of hone their craft a little bit and then come back, or is it just down to the individual? I
mean, what is sad and what we are seeing more of at Fashionista is that kids that can't afford to get through the MA are having to come straight from BA at college, and that is a shame. And it's, you know, that's the world we're living in now with education cuts, that unfortunately kids that could have done an MA and really benefited from it are coming straight into business and not really equipped, and it's just something I'm aware of and very frustrated by.
What do you kind of do in that situation? Because I suppose, are they prepared enough when they come to you from BA? Because it's kind of an impossible circle, isn't it, in a sense? Because if they haven't, they have to be sort of better. Would you advise them to go?
It's not ideal, yeah. You can look at their collection and think, wow, if they'd have been through an MA, some of that would have been hammered out of them, and you know, and their best points would have been really kind of nurtured. So yeah, you're dealing with something like half formed, and it's just more of a rush and add to the pressure for them to kind of learn on the job, I guess.
It was something I wanted to ask at the end, but it seems quite apt now, which was when you were recognised by royalty for your amazing work.
Oh God.
But it got me thinking about perceptions of the arts and for funding for the arts and provisions for the arts, and how that is actually something really important. And I was interested whether you've always found that, or whether that recognition felt kind of really great, but also in the back of your head but you're cutting arts funding, you're cutting this. Is there any kind of, do people tend to be really great, or is it?
I've been in a very privileged position, like I said, at Truman Brewery, where I've had that kind of continuity since 1996. They're essentially a patron of Fashionista, and I've been madly lucky in that Topshop and Topman, respectively, have looked after my women's wear and menswear shows. So I'm kind of, touch my lovely little school desk. I am very lucky in that those cuts haven't necessarily affected me personally, and we're still going, and I'm always amazed that we are still going after all these years, because you see things just kind of falling down because of funding, and it's so annoying because there's some great stuff out there that needs funding.
But that personal recognition must have been amazing. What was it like when you went to go to Buckingham Palace and everything?
Oh, the MBE.
Yeah.
It's so funny because when I got the letter, I thought I'd done something terribly wrong. This big envelope with a.
But you hadn't done your taxes properly.
Yeah, it's a big scary kind of ER the second, and I was like, oh shit, we're done. It was quite hysterical, and you know, I love a good laugh. I don't think I've ever laughed so much in my life. The day that the envelope arrived, and I was just running around the studio screaming, and like my staff were like screaming, and obviously, I mean, I'm not a royalist and I'm not a Tory. It's quite strange to go to all these fashion do's at the palaces and 10 Downing Street and stuff, but I mean, obviously it's a huge honour and to be recognised, and I was thrilled, and I had a lovely day, and the after party was just like the best thing ever.
But also it's brilliant because it shows that people take fashion seriously, and it also shows that you can have fun with fashion and still be taken seriously. Because that's one thing that I wanted to ask you about, is how you maintain this focus on like having loads of fun and being like sort of unfledgingly optimistic in what you do when you are like so busy. How is that possible? How do you...
What, to just, I don't know.
Just stay so positive when you're trying to put on like a bajillion shows a year.
I don't know. Oh yeah, I do know. I employ amazing people like that deal with all my nonsense. So I'll have ideas, and then they are the poor people that actually have to do it. And so that's another bit of advice I always give to young designers, is employ really amazing kind of geeks that work really hard and that love doing things properly, because I'm someone that starts off on an idea and doesn't finish it and goes on to the next thing So you have to kind of learn to employ people that are really good at
doing your tax return and things like that, doing the boring stuff.
It's not even the boring stuff, is it? Because to them, it's not boring. They, it just works together really well with my skills and their skills kind of team up well. And
it's that behind the scenes element, isn't it? I want to talk a little bit about picking the designers, because that's something that I'm so fascinated by, in how that you know that you've got this sort of a future star. When they come in and they're showing you their work and their portfolio, and you're trying to pick sort of the three, do you know you've got something really special? Is it instinct? Is that how you do it? Because you've said that in interviews before.
Yeah, instinct is kind of probably something in myself that I trust and that I think I can rely on. I'm not really logical. I'm quite emotionally, like, very young, I would say, like not very intellectual. So instinct is what I go on. And yeah, I kind of, you can just feel it when it's right, and when it's not, it's one of those things. It's like when you've got chemistry with someone, they don't have to be hot looking, but if there's that thing, isn't there? What can you do? You know it when you know it.
I'm interested just because all the different levels that you end up working with them on, you work, whether it's putting on the show, but there is also that element of like helping them build their brand and think about all the different angles of what they're doing. And it got me really interested in what people, like, who matters in fashion in receiving something. Like, is it the buyers? Is it press? Is it, like, bloggers and people online? And it got me thinking, when you're working with a designer, do you think about that? Do you think about how it's received and who matters?
Oh God, yeah. Otherwise, it would be like a vanity project for me, just to get my kicks on. That would be crazy.
But is it scary though when you pick something on instinct and then you're like, God, how are people going to take to this? Or is it just you have to just go do that?
Like I said, I think it's the one thing I can trust is my instincts, because other stuff is like, I'm not so good at, or it got kind of warped, and you learnt not to trust your other things, for your childhood or whatever. Don't want to turn this into a therapy session, but
they always turn into a therapy session.
Oh, fuck that, I'm not doing that.
Lull you into a false sense of security.
Sorry, I thought we were on blind date. So instinct is good, but I wouldn't do, and be where I am, and the designers wouldn't have the great advice they have without me bringing in the help of the panel. I mean, the Fashionista panel are incredible people that give up their time and expertise, and we sit down sometimes with the designers one-on-one and just really, I don't want to say grill them, that's wrong, just really kind of like try and get inside their heads and say, what is it you're trying to do here, or express, or where do you want to be in a year, what stock is, let us try and help you get there. And we really, I guess we workshop it, we sit there with them going, tell us everything. There's a great openness and a great kind of friendliness, and I hope anyway, I mean, I always find that the designers get a lot out of it, and they say they do, and that I hope it's not intimidating, because we tend to just sit and chat like this and just really try and figure out how we can help them. And my panel are incredible, the people on it. I mean, like I say, I know nothing. I moved here from Italy. I worked in Ken Market. I was a goth. I worked in an art gallery. I knew nothing about fashion. I didn't know the first person until I bumped into House of Jazz down the pub. Really, I didn't. So,
But that's interesting though, because that kind of raises the point of, does it matter? Do you have to have a kind of intense historical fashion knowledge to be able to know what people are going to engage with and what people are going to want to sort of consume or buy, or even just sort of look at?
God, I don't know. I never really asked myself those things. Maybe I should.
It's probably a good thing. Just get things done. You're not sitting there.
Too busy getting on with it, yeah.
There's a flip side to London, which I think is, as much as people, I feel like critics and journalists in London are so incredibly supportive of sort of London talent, and people are so sort of willing people to do well. But the flip side to that is you often see people criticise retailers for not sort of picking up on enough of the London talent that we have here, and you know, people say you can't buy stuff. Do you notice that? Does that
I know
frustrate
exactly
you?
who you're talking about, and it worked. Yeah, I think it's interesting how, what's the word, symbiotic? No,
Yes.
hand in hand it all goes here. I think there's a great sense of the press having got behind the whole young designer story in London over the years, and then more slowly, obviously, because there's more at stake, the retailers have kind of followed suit, and it's great to see, like, you know, I was going around the shops last weekend and seeing how many people that we've worked with or that I know are there in the shops and selling, and yeah, it's great to see the whole thing really as a machine kind of rolling together.
But do you think there's a lot more that could be done? I think, because I even find it, you'll go into big stores especially, and you walk around and you're like, where is this person, where's this person, why isn't that translating?
I mean, yeah, I'm all for like the smaller independent stores as well, like, you know, Machine A is being super supportive and stocking lots of interesting kids that may not have another London stockist otherwise, and I think over time people will probably get together and do more, you know, small stores or different ways of selling. It's something I'd love to do. I've always thought it's the missing link in what we do is to sell our own designers.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that, if that's something you think about.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love it. You just need the capital, don't you? It's like I could buy their collections all day long. I know exactly what I'd buy and what I think would sell, but who am I to, you know, I can't do that physically yet. Yeah, there's so much more I want to do.
Talk to me about that. What would you want
God,
to do?
you know, like, if money was no object and if I wasn't busy, I would like to, I think Fashionista should be an agency. It's like we should do so much more with these designers. I see great talent not necessarily being exploited right.
I'm interested in whether you ever look overseas, because, you know, people, that's almost London's buzzword. It's its definition in fashion as in the world, is it being the place for young talent. And, you know, people always talk about how fortunate the young kids are who are here, whether it's because of the art schools or whether it is things like Fashion East. And do you ever look to places like New York or Milan and think, God, those poor, if you were there and you were an incredible talent, I wish I could help you?
Probably not. I think I look at those cities and think, oh, I'd really like to take Fashionista there and do stuff, or do a Lulu and Co party, or do something fun with the Italians. Yeah,
It must be so
it's
hard.
not really that I know my limits. Like, I mean, I've got quite a lot on my plate. I don't think I can do more than I do, and plus I wouldn't have the local knowledge. I don't understand those fashion weeks particularly.
Yeah.
I look at them online and I just go, oh,
Yeah, right.
I understand London now.
Yeah.
It's taken a while.
I'm interested in just why those cities haven't seemed to realise the kind of potential of, that's perhaps a bit of a sweeping criticism. I think New York definitely has, you know, like funding opportunities and stuff, but there doesn't seem to be that same focus on just supporting young design talent as there is here, and that's what's propelled London, I think, to the position it's in now, where it's like a completely unmissable fashion city, and it's strange that no other city seems to realise that sort of.
Yeah, it is funny, isn't it? We get asked a lot to go and do stuff, but the timing's not been right so far. I would like to do things abroad. It's not that I wouldn't, it's just it's not madly high priority.
Got too much else on your plate, quite fair enough.
Yeah.
The flip side to that thing of London, though, and everyone talking about how amazing it is with all our young designers, is people, perhaps unfairly, it is this criticism that, oops, you're right.
Sorry.
Don't worry. Yeah, the flip side to people talking about London as sort of this amazing city of young talent is that sort of continued criticism that the designers working here don't have sort of sufficient business knowledge. Like, there's always that idea that designers kind of come along, do something nuts and great that you wouldn't see in any other city, and then they're not around in 5 years, 6 years' time. Is that something that you kind of feel quite strongly against, that that's not the case anymore? Or
I don't know. I don't really listen to those sort of, I don't really get drawn into all of that, all of those debates, really.
Guess you can't think like that.
I don't know, just sweeping generalisations. I'd rather just be dealing with something actual and real, not like, I don't know, worrying about what people say.
Is it frustrating though when you see someone who's incredibly talented just not be able to build a business?
Oh yeah, of course it's upsetting and it's frustrating, but
what can you do?
Yeah, that's up to them. And, you know, like we said earlier about timing, maybe there's something else they have to go and do and enjoy or learn instead. It's taken me all my 20s and 30s really to kind of go, this is what I love doing. Well, definitely all my 20s.
Let's take a different tack. I want to talk about Love magazine and what you do there.
Yeah.
Tell me about that role and how that came about and what it's like working with Katie and Katie Grant.
Oh my God, it's just so much fun. I love it. I love them all. It's super, super lols and interesting, and my favourite bits are probably the editorial meetings and the shoots. Well, I don't really do much more than that, do I? I write a couple of interviews, and those are great fun as well. Had lots of fun interviewing some girls last season. What don't I love about it, really? It's just brilliant. I mean, it's my favourite magazine, has been, and...
What makes it so special?
I think it has a sense of freedom to it, and an ease and a lightness of touch, where it's kind of, I think it's just very much like what they feel like doing at the time, and it doesn't feel heavy or overtly kind of politicised, but it's always like been quite good at antagonising and interesting. I still think Beth Ditto on the cover is like one of my favourite images ever. Yeah, no, it's great fun.
It goes back to that fun thing, doesn't it? Do you think that is the
Fun.
secret to good
We
fashion?
like fun.
Putting the fun back in fashion.
Yeah.
But is
God,
that, do you think
why bother
people
otherwise?
take it to... Because it's a difficult path to walk though, isn't it? Because I think your work is like, you wouldn't want people to sort of belittle fashion or think of it as frivolous. And you are, you know, so passionate about making fashion seem to be this incredible, like, dynamic industry, but then also it's making it seem really fun and really great and about being, you know, expressive and young and creative. How do you kind of balance that?
Well, I'm just hoping that I do. I'm hoping that, you know, because I can get carried away having too much fun. Like, definitely that's sort of probably one of my stumbling blocks. But I hope that I manage to get enough serious stuff across about how brilliant the designers are that we're working with, and that encourages people to take them seriously. They don't have to take me seriously. I don't take me seriously. It's like, why would you? So, no, really. So,
like, why would you take me seriously?
I just say I'm wearing a cap. It's a cap by a truck brand. I really love trucks. I don't know if you can see here. And it says Man, which obviously I think is genius because it's like the name of our menswear.
Yeah, let's talk
project.
about Man. Tell me what's happening with... Were you thrilled when the London collection's men's now on the map? That must have been incredible.
Thrilled.
Yeah.
Yes.
But why did it take so long for menswear to be seen as sort of equally dynamic and valid as
I don't
women's wear?
know. I find it very strange, Lou, because I remember so clearly, I can shut my eyes and still go back there. I remember sitting in that St Martin's MA show in 2005, looking at, it was Christopher Lumman's show, Christopher went off to Acne, and I was just like, wow, look at this talent, this is insane, like no one's doing anything with it, it's so good, it's so strong, maybe we should do something like a fashionista equivalent. And I went straight to Top Man because they were already doing great projects and working with, I'd worked with Kim, who was another huge inspiration for me, Kim Jones, like mega talent. I went to them and I said, hey, do you fancy getting on board and doing a menswear fashionista? And they were so up for it. It was just brilliant, and how fast it just, you know, got off the ground and then really got interested and took off. And then kind of 5 years later, you've got a whole menswear kind of day and then week happening. So very happy about that.
Man.
I love trucks. Did I tell you I'm going go-karting tomorrow?
You actually?
I'm
What's
going
the shoot
go-karting.
for?
I'm going to wear this. I can't say it's a secret shoot. It's not for love.
Exciting.
It's a secret shoot. I'm very, very excited.
So we've talked about kind of fun and being sort of optimistic, but if there was one thing that you could advise a young designer, if they're sort of coming to you or they wanted to do something like Fashionista, or they want to have their own label, what's the thing that you think is the most important thing that they should do, or they should sort of, an attitude they should have? What would you advise them? Get
advice from the best people they can. Beg for 10 minutes with someone who's brilliant and knows what they're doing. That really is, I think, how all that knowledge is kind of handed down and doors are opened and help is given, and it's easier said than done because obviously people are busy and you can't just knock on their door and go, hi, can you give me 10 minutes of advice? It doesn't really work like that, but maybe the more determined people can kind of find a way of getting that advice, and it is invaluable. Sorry, it's not easier to follow advice, is it? It's quite hard to knock on doors and get that, but I think the ones that are more likely to succeed will find a way. That's what I find.
You have to be willing to go that extra mile, don't you? You have to be willing to do anything.
So like you say, it is about an attitude and it's a determination, and that's one thing I've seen it over the years with the fashionista designers, that they have lots and lots of determination. It's different from delusion, which, you know, a lot of people might have and it will get them nowhere, but determination, hard work, those are the things really. But knowing how to take advice when someone is trying to hand it to you, someone that knows what they're doing, is really important.
Lulu Kennedy, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much.